ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a interview portion of the Can't Holstey podcast. Haven't done one in a while since the new changes within the website and all the positive things that I've got going on here. And I am honored and privileged to have an amazing friend that I've known, since high school, junior high. His name's Kagen Cox, and he's got an amazing business that he's grown, and it's flourishing. And he's even done some stuff in the midst of this craziness of the pandemic. And we're going to get all into that. But here's my buddy, Kagen. Kagen, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. It's really good to reconnect with you, man.
Yeah, it's been a long time, man. I think the last time I saw you was graduation back in.
It's been a while.
Well, no, 2014 or 2004. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, the last time that I saw you, actually, I just gotten married, and you sold me my first lawnmower, which I still have.
All right. Back at Sears Hometown Stores. All right. Yeah. No, that was a good time back then. That was a long time ago. My goodness. That had to be back in 2009, 2010 area, because that's about the last time I was there.
Yep.
Yep. So that's good. So let's get into the nick of things here. I want to talk a lot about you and then also your business, because your story about your life is very inspiring about what you've done, the ups and downs, the struggles, the depression that you had at some points, I think, and then you turned it around and look at where you're at now. It's a positive thing. And if you're watching this and you're thinking about starting a business or doing something in your life that's positive, pay attention. Because this guy, he's smart. He's a smart businessman. So tell us about what did you start doing after high school? I know that you did some time working for the railroad. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So kind of like ebbs and flows, a lot of shifts, learned a lot of different things in different industries. I actually started right out of high school. My uncle is an electrician, and so I thought I wanted to be an electrician. Did the apprentice program for just long enough to get dangerous with electrical, and then decided it wasn't my thing. And I actually got a job selling at Kalispell Toyota back in the day, and it was Glacier Toyota when I was there, and was there for a couple years. I got married, decided I needed to do something different for my family, and at the time, my dad worked for the railroad, and so he was able to secure me an interview. So I got an interview, and then I was with them for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
So, a long time. So it was crazy. It was one of those funny things that I was going to do the railroad for a year or two while I figured out what I wanted to do with my life, and then reflect back and go like, oh man, I've been here for almost 10 years and I'm still not figuring it out. But that's good.
What was your position that you were doing there?
Yeah, so I bounced around a lot. So I started out as just a maintenance guy. So I worked on the tracks. I was a maintenance, track maintenance guy. Started out working the tracks. We went around on what's called gangs. So I was on steel gangs and tie gangs, big 30 to 40 man crews where we'd go in and relay all the steel or pull all the ties and put new ties in for, miles upon miles. And I've been, everywhere from basically Seattle over into Wyoming, North Dakota, down into Texas, even Kansas. And I did that for about 4 years. And it was really difficult because I was only home on Saturday. We'd have to drive home and back. So I'd have to drive home, see my wife, give her a kiss, do my laundry, get in the car and drive back to work. Wow. And I did that for 4 years. And then at the time my daughter was born, I came home one weekend, and she didn't want anything to do with me, and it broke my heart. She didn't know who I was. I was only home, a couple hours on the weekends, and so I took a position as a track inspector. So I became an inspector over here in Pasco, Washington, and I took that position because I was able to work that and go home every night. So at the time, it was really rough there at the beginning. 2008, the crash, everything had happened. The house we had bought, we were like upside down, 150,000 in it. Not anything crazy that we did other than just not knowing. We bought a house, we remodeled it, and then the market fell out. So we lost our house. we couldn't buy our way out of a paper bag at the time. We were staying in a rental back in Kalispell, or my wife and kid was, my daughter Charlotte, and so I drove over here, took this position here, was sleeping in my car, and I'd pretend. So I didn't want the guys to know that I was sleeping at work, so I would leave with everybody, and then I'd go sit at Albertsons for an hour, and then I'd drive back, and I would stay warm at the shop, and I would sleep in my car, and then I would get up an hour before everybody's supposed to come back to work. And I did that for a couple months until a really good friend of ours was able to help us out a little bit financially. And my wife, I went home one weekend, and my wife had packed up, and so everybody shifted over, my wife and child, and we all moved over here. And then for 4 or 5 years, I was either an inspector or I ran heavy equipment. And then there towards the end, I was a foreman of a small crew, and we just changed out ties and switches and railroad stuff.
That had to put a big strain within your marriage. How did you and your wife deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's a hard question, and I reflect on that a lot. Like back to high school, Kent, we had a lot of love in our family. I had really great aunt and uncle and grandparents. My parents went through a really nasty divorce. My dad was never home. By the time I was pretty young, I was taking care of my brother and sister, and so it was really chaotic up all through high school. By the time I was in high school, I was working full time, taking care of my brother and sister. My mom had left with her new husband. Dad wasn't around, so we were living in a trailer. It was rough. And so when I met my wife was a pretty solid, and she had seen me we had gotten together, and she had known me from younger, from church and things like that. And I was able to make it through a lot of that with God's grace and bigger purpose and plan in mind. And her dad had worked abroad a lot as well. Her mom and dad are just phenomenal, awesome people. And I think just the fact that her dad wasn't home a lot and working, taking care of their family, and then they moved a lot. So I think that just that uncertainty of knowing what's going to be around the corner was, she was a little more, I guess, able to handle that than some, because she had, been bounced around a lot, and
a little more of understanding.
Yeah. And then, I thank God a lot, man. I mean, when she said death till do you part, she just has stuck with me, and family's always been first. And it's been hard. I don't really have a great answer other than, we just decided that giving up's not an option, and we're just going to keep taking kind of like the whole AA thing, taking it a day at a time. That's all you can really do.
Yep.
You think about, I don't know. I think about that verse in the Bible where it says, don't worry about tomorrow. Birds can't even take care of themselves, but look how good God takes care of them, and that kind of stuff. And
yeah.
And it's like every time we've hit rock bottom a couple times. We've lost house, we've lost our car, we've lost stuff 2 or 3 times over our marriage, and not anything other than just bad timing, really. And every time we've always made it on the other side. And so I think as it gets harder as life goes on, it's not as scary, because it's like, well, you know what, we hit rocks before and we came out and we were okay. So we know that next time we're going to hit rocks, and you will hit rocks again.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's the end of it, And so, I just, a lot of communication, a lot of prayer, and a lot of talk, I think is the key to those things.
Well, I commend you, because, a lot of people, I've been in that where, there's tough times, people just give up, to have that type of relationship where that you can trust and rely on each other, that has to be such an amazing feeling to have, knowing that there's people out there who try and it doesn't work, but for some reason God's been on your guys' side and it has kept you close, and that's a powerful thing.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. I will say that my wife is a stronger person than I am. I have more commitment issues than my wife does, because in my mind, with garbage going on from when you're younger, it bleeds over, and so you just in the back of your head assume that people are going to leave all the time. And so you don't really want to connect because you're like, well, it's going to, crap's going to hit the fan and they're going to take off.
It's bound to happen.
People do. And that's just not the type of person she is. And so, I mean, we're coming up on 14 years this year.
Wow.
And it's like, it's been within the last 2 or 3 years where I'm finally like, okay, she's not going anywhere. Like all the crap I put her through and the craziness, and she's there every day, and so, and that makes me want to be a better husband. And
Absolutely.
I struggle with, I think being self-aware in a marriage, in life with partners, all that stuff is so important because I know that I struggle with being passive aggressive. I know that I'm an emotional person. And so being very aware of that, there are times that I have to check myself and be like, I'm the problem. She's not the problem.
Yeah.
Even though I think she's being the problem, it's really my baggage. And that, like I said, that's only been the last couple of years that I've been able to be, self-aware enough to think, and that's hard because nobody wants to be wrong. Right. So like,
yeah.
and it's just, no matter what we've done, it's always been, and I say this with a grain of salt, it's always been trying to keep God first, family first, and then everything else. And it's easier to say that, especially when you're not in the heat of the moment.
Yep.
It's been, and I say that just this last year has been probably the biggest test of our marriage and just everything. It's gone from, feast and famine. Every week it would just switch back and forth. It would be like, we're going to come up with $60,000, and then it's like, oh, we have an extra 50,000, and then oh no, we're 100,000 in the hole, and then and it was just like, and it's like, we had one conversation where it was like, we had bought an old motorhome a couple years back, and I was talking to my wife, and I was just like, I don't know if I don't know if we can make it through this. Like, I just, like, emotionally and mentally, I don't know, because kind of like you with the positivity, although I don't want to put a fake face on and pretend like everything's hunky-dory and great, at the same time, I believe that, you have to project the positivity, and sometimes saying it and acting it even when you don't feel like it, right, is because you're striving for something greater, better than the situation at hand. But there were days, I'd come home and I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to hang on to things. We might end up losing it all again. And my wife one night was like, well, we own that old motorhome in the back. If we have to, well, I'll get in the motorhome. We'll be fine. And that little moments like that where it's like, all right, fire's lit. Here we go. Let's get it. Do it. We're gonna make it. And it's little things like that. And God will do that occasionally. It's like, I'll just be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then God will put somebody in my life and be like, hey, Kagen, I just want you to, I've been thinking about this, and this is where, you're doing good or you're doing bad. And I just want you to know that it's going to be okay. And it was like, oh yeah, I needed that. I just needed a little pump somewhere, And so it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
So where did the whole concept and idea of your business, let's talk about that. Kagen's Coffee and Crepes. It sounds delicious. If I was in your area, I would probably be there every day.
Thanks. Well, I like it. Yeah. So it goes back a little bit further than that. So back in high school, I had decided I wanted to get into youth and ministry and family counseling because I figured, it was a youth group or a young group of people that kept me solid when I felt like my family was falling apart. And so I had a really strong connection with youth group, and I saw the importance of having a solid, in high school, just a solid, your people. I realized how important that was. And I figured with all the trash I was going through, I'd make a great, I was screwed up, so I could help screw up other people, family counseling.
So we're really quick, where did you go to church back in Kalispell?
So I grew up going to the Church of Christ over off of Stillwater.
Okay, yeah.
And great group of people. They really, there were days that I'd wake up and there'd just be groceries sitting out on the porch, and my car would break down, and magically all of a sudden some mechanic had a bill to fix it and don't know where the money came from. Just things like that. People watching out that to this day, I think I know who they are, but it was just very selfless acts of love, loving on young, broken people. Anyway, well, I was going to go to college, and at the time, my brother and sister asked me that I would consider not leaving because they were afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen to them because I was taking care of them at the time.
Okay.
And so I decided not to go to college and stay and wait for them to graduate. And it was great. If for that very reason, I met my wife, and all great things come. At the time, it was a bummer, but looking back, it was the best thing ever. But yeah, so I wanted to do that, and I've always had this drive. I really, really, truly care about people, and I really care about young people, and I'm really obsessed with personal growth, spiritual growth, and personal growth. Not being the same person today that you're going to be 10 years from now. We're trying to constantly be a better version, whatever it is, whatever talents and gifts God's given you. Like, I want to be that servant that, didn't bury it in the sand, right? I want to keep learning what those gifts and talents are. So anyway, so yeah, fast forward, get married. And while I was on the railroad for nearly 10 years, I had tried and failed at like 11 different business startups. And that's where, like, my wife has been so solid. She has let me try every stupid thing that I came up with under the sun. And towards the end there, a couple of them cost us quite a bit. I've done everything from shopping cart repair company to taxidermy to hydro dipping. I even started a pellet company. I had McDonald's. I was talking to Northwest McDonald's about sustainability with coffee pellets that I was making and all kinds of stuff. And the last big venture I did cost about, it was like $25,000. It was all the money we ever had in the world, and I blew it, right, and it was gone. And I was pouting. I went for a walk. I went for a pout walk because that's what I do. And as I was walking, I walked by this building that was empty. It was all, the corner of this building was just vacant. And long story short, there's a theater that's attached to it, and the theater has been converted to a church. And the pastor came out, and he goes, "You're looking at that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just curious. Why is it empty?" And he unlocks the door. We walk in, and he goes, "Well, we'd really like to see a coffee shop here." And he hands me the key, and he goes, "I think you should do something." Walks off. And I'm standing here with like, oh, okay.
God works in mysterious ways, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I go home and I tell my wife, I said, "Well, I'm smart enough to know that just to get into coffee is really, really hard. You don't turn a profit in coffee for like 5 years because although good margins, it's very flooded. There's at least up here in the Northwest, there's a coffee stand on, two stands on every corner, right? They're so, but what was interesting is back at all the past business ideas I did were always me by myself, working in a garage, in a shop, working with my hands, very isolated. And then we came up with this idea of, hey, when we first got married, we used to travel around, and my wife introduced me to crepes, and I fell in love with crepes. And so it was like my little thing. Like when we would go somewhere, I would try to find a crepe shop, and I just loved them. I thought they were great. It was like all this great food that you can stuff into this little thin shell, and you can have them sweet and savory, and there's just no limit to them. And so I was talking to my wife, and she said, well, maybe we should do a coffee shop or a crepe and coffee shop. And I thought that'd be great. And then the whole idea kind of evolved with, wait, this is a great idea. I love young people. I like connecting, and this can be kind of our where we get to work with young people in a much more real world scenario, right? Real life is happening constantly, and we can be kind of a breath of light, not only into them, but we can also be into the community. And so we, like kind of the last stand, we went all in. I cashed out my 401k, sold all my vehicles. I remember I had a Suzuki Samurai, which was my baby. And the day before we opened, I realized I had planned everything out except buying food, the one thing you need for a restaurant. And so I sold my car that night to go buy food. And I bought what I thought was enough for like half a week worth of food. And I got the restaurant ready. And I remember I hired 2 girls to work with me. And And I remember praying that 10 people would come in, or I'm sorry, that 60 people would come in and pay me $10 a piece. 600 bucks is what I was trying to get so that I could pay my 2 girls. And I remember praying that. And by noon, the first day we opened, we had done like $2,700 in sales. I had completely ran out of food. I was bawling my eyes out because at the time when I got the space, the deal I had worked was if I could get 4 free months of rent, I would do all the reno myself. And so at the time I was working nights at the railroad. So I would work all night long on shift. And then I had an hour in between each side that I would sleep, and then I would go work the shop. And so for the first, once I built it out, and then once we opened, I was working both jobs. So I was just like emotionally maxed out. I just was a wreck. And and then after 4 or 5, I can't remember, I think it was 5 months. It was St. Patrick's Day. I remember that. I went in to give my 2 weeks notice, and the railroad doesn't let you give 2 weeks notice. They just say, see you later. So I remember walking out just like, okay, this is real. I just quit my career job. And that was 4 years ago. And the shop's almost 5 years old. And we've been, like I said, it's been up and down, definitely up and down, but we've been overall blessed, and it's been good.
That's awesome. So are you still in that original spot that guy handed you the key?
Yeah. 270 Williams Boulevard. It's in an old strip mall outside. Still our original OG location. Yeah, it's great. We love it. It's needs a lot of work. It's just an old building, but it's been fun. We kind of bootstrapped everything, when we cashed out my 401, only ended up at the end of it, I think we ended up with like 16 or 17,000. And then the rest of it, I just scraped until we got it going. And yeah. And then we were doing really well. And then I thought, kind of ignorance and arrogance, I guess. I tried to open a drive-through, and that's when I learned, location. It was a bad move. It ended up almost bankrupting us. This was like in year 2. Almost sent us under. I was able to, me and my wife and our team were able to pull it together and got out of it. But it was like, I always say it was $60,000 that I spent for business school, and I learned real good. But we got out of that. But out of that came a contract. There's a big company out here called PNNL, Pacific Northwest Laboratories, and they're a big lab, and they're kind of connected to Hanford, which is a big nuclear power site out here. Mm-hmm. And there's thousands of engineers, very smart people, and they do all kinds of amazing things all over the world. Well, anyway, they have a meeting room, and so they asked us if we wanted a contract to have a small cafe out there, and so we were able to get a contract out with this government facility, which is really, really neat. Unfortunately, now we've been closed. Actually, this month will be a year because they closed us down in April, and they haven't let anybody go back out to the site. So, but we did get that, and we ran that for a year before we got closed, but it was doing really well. Yeah.
So what has this pandemic done as far as, the emotional side, but also the positive side? Have you learned anything from all this?
Yeah, we're still in it. Over here in Washington, we just moved to phase 2. So I've just recently been allowed to let people sit down in my restaurant. Not giving up, taking it a day at a time. Those are things I've learned. Being consistent, even when you don't feel like being consistent. Really leaning into that faith. If you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it's what you feel called to, it's what you want to do. Just not giving up on those dreams and ideas. And then just really leaning into help. I don't always accept help very well. I've always felt like, I got to do it myself. And so there's been, I have a general manager and a couple of my staff managers that, there were times that they were like, hey, we don't need a paycheck this week. We'll come. And we always paid them, but it was just one of those things where when you have people that buy into what you're doing, you know, we always believe in bettering our family, bettering the community, and building each other personal growth. Those are kind of our pillars. And when you have people that have bought into that and it becomes bigger than your own dream, it really lights a fire in you not to cave and give up. I struggle with confrontation. That's always been a real big problem that I have had. And through this, I've had to be confrontational, good and bad. And so I've gotten, I guess, more grit out of it. And then there's still a lot to worry about, but realizing that just worrying for half a year, whether you're going to live or die or make it or not make it, it didn't add anything, right? Mm-hmm. It only took away from what we were doing. And so realizing that ultimately we serve a big God and things are bigger than that.
Absolutely. Now I'm looking over your Spokane location menu. Everything looks good. What is one of your favorite items on the menu?
Oh yeah, man, it's got to be the Monte Cristo.
Really?
Yeah, right. It's like savory, right? So the whole idea with the crepes are, I wanted to take one of my favorite foods and just make it as American as possible, because that's who I am. I'm an American, right? Or I'm an American, and so we take all these wonderful ideas and then we say, well, can we make it into a crepe? So we've had pizza crepes. We have, right now we have a banana cream crepe, which is just out of this world. We have the Monte Cristo, which is typically a sandwich. Typically a true Monte Cristo sandwich is going to be like 2 different meats, 2 different cheeses, breaded, battered, deep fried, and then you dip it in jam. That's a Monte Cristo. And so we did all that without the deep frying part of it.
Wow.
And it's super good. Another really good one is the breakfast in bed. It's got eggs, cheddar, Jimmy Dean sausage, and then we put syrup all over the top of it, and it's just ridiculous. One of our most popular ones is the All-American, which has eggs and bacon and ham, and then we put country style gravy all over the top of it. That one's pretty
now awesome. You're talking my business right there. Anything with gravy.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think it's funny down here in Texas, you know, breakfast tacos are like the big deal. Like everybody's crazy about breakfast tacos. I never seen anything like it in my entire life. But you know, I do like going to IHOP and having their crepes, but I would think that these look and they probably taste 10 times better than IHOP's, right?
Well, what we do is very different than what they do. All good. Never want to slam on another restaurant.
Yeah.
But we definitely do our business well and really focus on what we're doing. So our crepes they're made in the traditional French style, right? So it's a 16-inch griddle. We make our batter fresh every day. Sometimes we go through 10 or 15 gallons of batter. I mean, we really go through it sometimes, but it's really thin. Basically, crepe translated is really thin pancake. I mean, you know, kind of for Ricky Bobby's sake, you know, really, really thin pancakes. And you know, you got to get them kind of golden brown, crispy a little bit, and then, you know, put all the good stuff inside. It's just a good holder. It's a holder for all the good stuff to get in you.
Absolutely.
So that's what we do, and it's fun. We started out with 2 griddles. The store up in Spokane I'm really, really proud of the store up in Spokane. I would like to claim the fame, but I don't know if I can, because I don't know. But one of our 5-year goals was to be the first drive-through crepe shop in the U.S. And as far as I know, we are there. And if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. But we haven't been able to find one, and so now actually that store has we're running 6 griddles out of that store. And we can get like 4 crepes, 2 drinks out in about 3.5-4 minutes,
wow.
Which is a pretty fast turn time. And that's all made to order fresh right there, you know. So it's kind of a cool take on fresh meats fast, and something new. We've also done, which we're going to bring back, is the Big K, which is basically a knockoff of the Big Mac, but it's the Big K, and it's got all the ingredients that would be in a Big Mac, but we cook everything in house and then put it all in a crepe, and it's ridiculous. So it's like a cheeseburger crepe.
Now, I see you also sell coffee. Is that your own product, or do you have someone that's working with you producing that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we always tell people that we're a restaurant hiding in a coffee shop. Our whole vibe and culture is very much geared towards people that want to connect, get together, study, all those kinds of things. Our coffee is, in my opinion, the best coffee in the Northwest. We have a roaster that we work really close with who roasts it for us. He only buys top of the line beans. It's a blend that he's got just for us, so we've come up with a blend for us. So it's our blend and our coffee. It's Rockabilly Roasting. I'll get you a link. They are just salt of the earth, wonderful people, putting out such a phenomenal product. And so we've partnered up with them, and they and that's part of how good business works, is you find people that are doing good business, and you want to work with each other, not against each other.
What wine companies are you working with? I see that you sell wine as well.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those little offshoot things that we were trying. So I brought in a few different wines. Kiona is one that we were working really close with, and that's here in our area. We're just surrounded by wine country, and so it's just everywhere. And so we were like, let's see if we can get into that. So we were doing Kiona. We had another one called Terra Blanca. La Cole was another good one that we brought in a little bit. These are all like higher and nice boutique wines that are local to this area. But what ended up happening was we were having a really hard time pushing wine. In my mind, I was like, oh yeah, wine and grapes, that goes really well. But what ended up taking off was ciders. So
okay,
we have about 6 or 7 ciders on tap, and then mimosas. So a lot of times Friday, Saturday morning, people come in, they want to get their crepes, they want their mimosa. The dudes will get a hard cider, or maybe some cold smoke from Montana. I usually keep that on tap too, and so that's kind of our thing there.
That's perfect. Sounds great. Tell me about your locations. I thought that you had 2, but there's actually more than that.
There's one out at the area that's still closed.
Okay.
We own that location, but it until they allow us to go back out, it's closed. The drive-through that I opened and failed on, that one's gone. And then we have the drive-through in Spokane. So currently open, we have our location here in Richland, Washington, and then the other one is up in Spokane.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah. So, what would you tell people that are looking to start up a restaurant or have, big ambitions to start something like you did? What would be your big advice to them?
Well, I think it's really, it would depend on the person. The thing I always talk about with restaurants are, if you're just selling food to sell food and make money, you're probably going to fail. I really believe that your business needs to be bigger than just the product that you're selling. For us, we very much wanted to create a space that we wanted to hang out, and a space that we could be connected to the small little world that we are currently in. And so for us, it was really, the crepes and the coffee were a means to connect and reach out to other people. So I would say that, depending on what you're trying to do, I would ask somebody first, what do they think they're really good at? What do they think they're gifted in? And if they think that those gifts are crossover with a restaurant, then yeah, by all means go. But, I was really ignorant and I just didn't know. You hear a lot of people talk about, when I retire, I think I'll open a cafe or a coffee shop. if you have that kind of mindset, you're probably going to fail, just to be blunt and kind of rude. If you're not going to be all in and give it your all and make it survive, it won't survive. And so I would just say, how much grit do you have? What is important to you, and what are you trying to achieve at the end of it? For me, I still really care about young people. We just hired a couple new people last week, and I'm stoked about it. They've never had a job before, so we get to, and that's scary, right? I have no idea. These are, 18 to 21-year-old kids that have never had a job, and I get to be their first one. So I can either make them or break them. And that's a lot to me. I take that on. That's a lot of responsibility. I get really excited about it. And so, but out of that, I can tell you, personally, some of the great things that I've gotten out of it. We have one kid that he started working for us, and he wanted to be a nurse. And so we said, okay, well, either you start down that path or we're going to fire you at some point, because you can't just flip crepes the rest of your life. I mean, we didn't say it like that, but it was, we're going to encourage you to get into what it is you want to do. And now he's a nurse. He's a full-time nurse. We have another kid that was on the fence about what he wanted to do with life, and now he's in college, almost an engineer, and he did that coming through us. And so seeing people where they start and where they, if we can breathe a little life and encouragement into them, I get really excited about that. So I would just say, what's your passion? What motivates you, drives you? And, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing not to sacrifice? Where's your integrity level? Because all that's going to be put to the limits. I do recommend that people newly married might consider doing some other business than restaurant. It's just hard, right? I mean, it's really, really hard. I get to be out and talk to all the people. My wife's more introverted, so she runs all the books on the back end. And, it's hard, when you and your spouse do different jobs, different work, you can come together and you can vent and it's okay. But at the end of the day, you can't really vent to each other because you're still working on the same thing. And, that can test you. And so you just have to kind of find that balance.
Or find a place to open your business next to a church so you can have that pastoral, advice when you need it. Kind of like tool time. Have the neighbor give you all the advice over the fence.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
No, the amazing thing about your situation is, with my podcast, it's all about positive and encouraging people. And as I looked at your website before we came on here, it was like, wow, the same thing. It's about being a community. That's what I feel with mine. It's about sharing that, being a community, sharing your thoughts, helping people, encouraging people. And, that's what your place is all about. Do you tell a little bit more about what you do as far as giving back to the community and what you try to do as far as that?
Yeah. So, as far as being part of the community, one thing that I'm proud of that we've always done is the community knows that if there's any kind of fundraisers, any of the schools, Girl Scouts, anything like that, everybody in this little area at least knows if they go to Kagen's, they're not going to be turned away. We don't have a no soliciting sign on our door. And that's a really hard and scary balance because we have so many people coming in. But I've never not donated to a charity, not always with money, but we've always donated coffee and gift cards, things like that. I think in 2019, we added up all of the different fundraisers that we had contributed to, and all of those fundraisers in total had raised, I think like $3.5 million, not just from our stuff, but from everything. We were a part of that. We've been a part of some different startups with dog rescues. We've been a part of bringing awareness to like human trafficking, and we've been a part of a lot of different organizations like that. And we allow our space to be used by people that are trying to bring some of those awareness. And it's kind of a fine line. But if it's something that's going to benefit the community and it doesn't go against my core beliefs and values, then we definitely, host it, do it, get it going. I've never turned a Girl Scout away. In fact, one year there was a troop that was struggling, and so we just bought all their cookies and we did crepes. We did Girl Scout cookie crepes, and it was fun. I mean, it was fun. So those are some of the cool things that we get to be a part of and get to do. Yeah, it's hard, you know. I mean, it's hard. I always hope that we're being a light and an example in the community. And it's hard, you know, when you do have a small business. Unfortunately, politics are such a big deal. It's just a part of our world. But, you know, trying to be a person that rises above the political noise and, you know, just loves on people for who they are and where they're at. Doesn't matter, you know, where they're at in life or what side of the aisle they stand on. That can be really difficult, and it can be challenging as a company. But that's just part of our core values and beliefs that I really don't care who you are. You need to be loved on, because I mean, at the end of the day, am I treating people the way I want to be treated? And I hope so. And I think that we're achieving that. I really do. My staff, you know, everybody that works for me, is told, you know, hey, if you think you can make somebody's day, and I mean, within reason, you know, everybody is required to try to give away at least a drink or a crepe a day, just if they think they can brighten somebody's day by doing it. And so that's something that we do. I know last year, just in food product, we gave away $60,000 worth of food. And this is stuff that we don't brag about or talk about, because that's just not why we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's bigger than that. And yeah, and I just, you know, my prayer is that we can keep doing that. One of my big things is I want to prove that you can be a small business that's growing, trying to be a big business, and you can be in business and you can do it well and do it in a way that, one, glorifies God, but two, is just a super great thing for the community to have.
Absolutely. So you are on Instagram and Facebook, both under at Kagen Coffee and Crepes. I encourage you guys to check it out. But also, if you're in the area of where his locations are that are open, please go check him out. This is an awesome thing he's doing. But also, you know, it's just like this podcast. This isn't going to survive unless there's the support of you. And, you know, a business like this that does so much to help people grow and to go far in life, that's a huge thing. I can relate to having a boss like that. My boss, when I worked at Sears, my first boss, Hans Musée, he, you know, taught me a lot of lessons. And he taught me one good lesson is I quit once, and it left a bad taste in his mouth, but I came back looking for a job, and he gave me an ultimatum. He said, if I bring you back, you will stay at this job, because if you leave again, you're going to burn a huge bridge. And I didn't let him down. I stayed for 5 years that time until I moved to the East Coast. But by then he retired and left, so I was good. But no, he taught me a lot. He taught me to work hard. He gave me, I think once he gave me 2 raises within 2 weeks. And it was because I was working hard and I was trying to prove myself again to him. And so, you know, to have a boss like that, like you, where you encourage to be a good person, to lift up others, that's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what we need more of. So I give you props on that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun, man. You know, we joke all the time. I was threatening one of my staff the other day that if they didn't start making mistakes, that I was going to let them go, because the only way they're going to learn is by making mistakes. You know, they're so scared of making a mistake, they're not doing anything. And so I told them, I said, all right, either you start breaking stuff or messing stuff up, or I'm going to let you go. Because if you don't mess it up, you're not going to learn, and then you're just not going to have any confidence.
Yeah.
And so we'll joke about that, and I'll go in and I'll ask, all right, well, how many batters did you drop today, or did anything and then we laugh about it and we talk about what we learned from it and how we're going to get better from it, and we move on. And that's life. I mean, without screwing up, you don't learn. And rather than being scared, let's celebrate our mistakes within reason, right? I mean, everything is within reason, right? We want to celebrate what we've learned by trying. If you don't try, you don't make mistakes, you're not going to grow. And I love it. I love watching people start timid and then not knowing, and then just watching some of these young women and young men just become just phenomenal people. And they're going to do bigger and better things than I can even imagine. And I got to say, hey, they got to flip crepes for me for a while. That's awesome, right? And I get to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Well, you know what, Kay, I got to tell you, and I said this before we came on, you were one of those friends of mine in high school that, if I was going through something or you noticed that I wasn't feeling myself, you were one person that always did something to make sure that I was okay. And looking back, being an adult, I can't tell you how much that was a good thing and how important that was, because there's not a lot of people, especially in high school, especially our high school. There wasn't a lot of kids that took the time to what I call be that person. You dropped anything to be a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you, there's nothing I can think about high school didn't involve you as a friend. And that means a lot to me. It really does. And so to see that you're still living that lifestyle where in a way, you put other people before yourself. And that's very humble, and you didn't expect anything. You just wanted to be a good person. And that's what I not valid, but that makes you valid. But that's what I appreciate so much about you back then and still today, man. Your drive to not give up, that you have faith that everything is going to work itself out. There's not a lot of people who think that way, but you are living proof. Just like when I was going through my divorce and I was dealing with all these emotions in my head, and I said, you know what? I got to stop. I got to pray to God. I got to let him take care of it. I'm going to leave it at his feet. Wherever he wants me to go, whatever he wants me to do, it's all up to him. I'm going to let him be in control. And that's what you've done so many times, but it's proof. It takes time. It takes time to get to where you need to be when you let it be to God. And so many people just give up at once. They're like, oh, I tried God. I gave it one try. It didn't work out. I'm done. No, you gotta, it takes time. It's a journey. It's a stepping stone, but you never let things get in the way of your happiness and where you felt like you could be happy. You've tried different things. Some things failed. This worked. It's just proof, and if you're watching this and you're one of those people that are like, oh, I give up. I give up. Don't give up. Look what happened. It takes time. It takes faith. It takes good people to surround you, like his wife. That's what you need. And if you're not surrounding yourself with people like that, chances are you're still going to fail.
Yeah. There, a couple things on that real quick. Yeah, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. You got to remember that too.
Yep.
If you don't, for me, right, like I keep leaning on the fact that I don't believe God makes junk. And if you're here, obviously you're not junk. I have to believe that. And compounding, right? Things compound over time. And so it's one of those things that if you take it a day at a time, stop. I do. And being happy, like you said, I mean, I have had a dark night. I'll tell you, the last few months have been rough. I mean, it's sickening, like not knowing every day if you're gonna just anyway. But my point being that as you continue to realize that you're living for something bigger than you, and that whatever you have is not yours. Once you realize that everything that you have doesn't belong to you and it's not yours anyway, and you just get to be a part of it, that right there took a lot of burden. Like when I started to think that I had to carry everything on my shoulders, I had to keep it together, I had to do it, it was all right? And once I realized that it wasn't me doing it, it was me being a part of it, and I wanted to be a part of it, and I was able to take a step back and go, you know what, I can't control anything that's going on except for my attitude. And today, I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. I screwed up yesterday because I didn't get anything done. But right now in this moment, I'm going to take one little baby step to do something that I know is going to be helpful. That's it. And sometimes that's as simple as I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to somebody that I know they're having a bad day, and I'm just going to go be friendly with them for a minute. And that little, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I feel better. Having that selfless act of just doing something kind took me out of that moment of, chaos and falling apart, and realizing that compounds over time, and eventually it will move you forward into a better space. But you just have to be aware that you're not in control of anything. You're not in control of anything. And once you realize that, and you just take those steps to move forward and realize that, man, I get to be a part of this. And what am I learning from this? We talk about failures. Okay, a lot of crazy things have happened. Okay, so what did we learn? How are we going to apply it? And where do I want to be a year from now? Do I want to be in this mental space? Probably not. So what am I doing every day to get out of it? And it's going to be failure after failure, but it's taking it a day at a time and not giving up, because God doesn't make junk. I promise.
That's a good way of putting it. I never thought of it that way. Well,
because
it's awesome.
You man, with your podcast. I mean, I have the majority of my friends have had more bad relationships than good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that a good handful of them have just gone down dark and bad paths where they just don't care. They just are angry, bitter people. And to have somebody that's like, you know what, I've had some rough in my past. I can go one of two directions. I can be, pissed off and angry at everybody and blame everybody else, or realize that things are happening around me and I'm going to learn from them. And I'm going to make that decision. I'm going to choose to be the other side of that, right? And that's a big deal. And that's what you're doing. And so you're going to breathe a lot of life into people that are like, oh, wait. They're like, for me, right? Like every time I meet a business person that hasn't gone to college or failed 11 different businesses before they started up, or worked a job for the majority of their life before they actually are doing what they feel called to do, I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. Like I'm not, I'm not stupid. I'm not crazy. That is okay. There are other people like that. And to know that and be like, okay, so here I am in this moment. God's created this moment. Let's what are we going to do with it? Right. And again, I fall off of that all the time, but it's doing stuff like my whiteboard, writing it out so I can see it, because I'm visual. And if I just say it, I'll forget it. And so putting it out there, having people hold you accountable. You talked about your friends. You are you will be the average of the 5 people you hang out most with. So if you're hanging out with people, that's just a fact. So if you're hanging out with people that are just, they're not going anywhere, they're grumpy, they're angry, they're bitter, they're pissed off at the world, the government's the problem, their job's the problem, everything else is the problem, guess what? You're gonna be number 5 doing that with them, right? And so trying to make sure that you're surrounding bad company corrupts good morals, right? And I'm not saying go out and get rid of all your friends, but just realize, like, that core group of people that you surround yourself with, maybe you reach out to that dude that's, out of your range. You're like, man, that guy's so cool. I can't, or that girl is just on top. And I reach out. More than likely, they want to bring people along with them, right? And it's going to make you think differently and change that space that you're in.
Absolutely. I was talking to someone about this today. I said, I'm interviewing a friend from high school. I said, look at our class, our graduating class. Nate Prince. He has his YouTube stuff, his website about, stuff going on in a healthy lifestyle mindset. And then I've talked to, Tyler Hensley, who dealt with addictions and how he changed his addiction to alcohol into a positive. I've talked to Dan Holguin on here, how, he went from some high school rodeo bull rider sensation to being on American Ninja Warrior on NBC. I've and then a guy that I'm still waiting to talk to, Coulter Smith. He was big in our school with sports, and now he's dealing stuff with meditation through a specific style of breathing. There's so many people from our class that I would have, back in high school go, I don't know what people are going to do with their lives, but to see now that we're adults, what has it been? Over 10 years later, 12 years later, and to see where people are doing with their lives. Some are doing really good, just like those people are, just like you. And there's other that are unfortunately, aren't on that right mindset. And, I wish there was a way we could help these people to get them motivated to use their talents, because everybody has talents that are hidden.
Yeah.
Yours just happened to be making incredible food. And and there's no better positivity in life than having a good crepe.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I'm just so thankful to be able to know so many people, because our high school at the time was the largest in the state when we were in high school.
Mhm.
Now it's not, because they finally separated, of course, a few years after we leave.
Yeah.
But I think we were fortunate to have it that way, because I think our graduating class, there were so many different styles of people. There was the people that were Christians, and there was the people that were atheists. There was people that were in the drama, the choir, the band, the jocks, as we called them, the smokers corner people. I mean, but it didn't matter for some what group you were a part of. And I think the best part was there was a lot of us who stood by each other. And it didn't matter where you came from, because like me and you, we hung out with various styles of people. We had our little group that hung out in the morning before class. It was, what was it? There was the twins, the triplets. We had the Mariah. We had just a great little group of people. And it was so positive, because there was no judging. We never hated each other. I mean, yes, there was times maybe we didn't see eye to eye on things, but that's kids. But I think what made it unique is we all respected each other in some way. And it's nice to hear. I just got back in contact with one of our friends that we hung out with, Mariah, and it's good to hear all the positive things that are going on with everybody's lives, and especially catching up with you, man. So congratulations on all your success. Once again, go check out Kagen's business. It is Kagen's Coffee and Crepes. Just an amazing place. It looks like to have some good coffee, food, and also I would call it fellowship with a good community. So go check them out. Thank you for your time, Kagen.
Yeah,
good luck.
thank you, man. This is
hopefully
fun.
this virus, in here in Texas, at least in other places in Montana, it's kind of dissipating a little bit. Things are starting to reopen. Hopefully that happens to you and you get things back to normal.
We'll get there. Whatever it is, we'll get there.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. And for all you people that are watching, remember to think and be positive. Do what you can today, not what you can't. And I believe in you, and so does Kagen. Don't you think you should too? And
Absolutely.
Most of all, if you see any veterans or someone who served our country, whether it be police, fire, medical, take the time to give them an elbow, give them a fist bump, tell them how much you appreciate them. You never know how much they might appreciate that. It all has to do with kindness. So do that today. And until the next time we talk again on the Kent Holste podcast, thank you very much. Be safe and God bless.
Woo.